Ma'am, you been drinking today? Your eyes are glassy, you're sweating. Smells like alcohol in here.
No, need sugar. I'm sick.
Yeah, that's what they all say. Look at me. How much have you had?
It's medical. Bracelet right here.
Ma'am, slurring your words doesn't help. I'm not buying the excuse. Step out of the vehicle. You're
For someone with type 1 diabetes, a sudden drop in blood sugar feels life-threatening. Your sight goes fuzzy, your words stumble, and your mind starts to fail. When Burnice Gleason pulled over to protect herself, she thought she was acting responsibly. But Officer Kyle Williamson didn't recognize a medical emergency. He saw a drunk driver. He ignored her cries, ignored the medical bracelet on her wrist, and handcuffed a woman on the verge of collapse. He had no clue that his own body camera was capturing a shocking display of negligence. What you witnessed was a health crisis treated like a crime. An officer so fixed on his assumptions that he refused to even glance at the bracelet right before him. You saw the arrest. Now we'll take you through the full story, break down every moment of that traffic stop, and expose the terrifying scene at the police station when a medic realized this wasn't drunkenness. It was a fight to stay alive. If you think police officers need better training to tell the difference between medical emergencies and intoxication, hit that subscribe button now. What happened to Burnice Gleason is a nightmare that could happen to anyone with a serious health condition. And often the only thing that stands between recognition and disaster is whether the officer takes a second to look. Let's rewind to 3:00 p.m. on a Thursday in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio. Burnice Gleason is 29 and has been managing type 1 diabetes since she was 11. That's 18 years of finger pricks and insulin shots, 18 years of counting carbs and checking her blood sugar, 18 years of living with a condition that demands constant attention because her pancreas no longer works properly. Type 1 diabetes isn't about eating too much sugar or skipping exercise. It's an autoimmune disorder where the body attacks the cells that make insulin. Without insulin, the body can't use glucose. Too much sugar leads to hyperglycemia, too little leads to hypoglycemia. And right now, Burnice is experiencing hypoglycemia as she drives home from the elementary school where she works as a librarian. She knows her body well and recognizes the signs. The slight trembling in her hands that started about 10 minutes ago, the cold sweat forming on her forehead, the sluggish, foggy thoughts creeping into her mind. She ate lunch at noon, a turkey sandwich and an apple, and took her insulin as prescribed but miscalculated. Maybe the sandwich had less protein than she expected. Maybe she was more active than usual shelving books and helping kindergartners pick out dinosaur picture books. Whatever the cause, her blood sugar is falling fast, and she knows danger is near. Burnice always keeps emergency glucose in her purse, small chalky candy-like tablets designed to raise blood sugar quickly during a crash. She reaches for her purse on the passenger seat, but her shaking hand knocks it to the floor. She tries to grab it while keeping her eyes on the road, but her vision is blurring at the edges. Her heart races, adrenaline pumping as her body struggles to make up for the glucose her brain isn't getting. This is hypoglycemia. It's what happens when a diabetic's blood sugar falls below 70 mg per deciliter. Drop under 50 and clear thinking starts to fade. Under 40, you can lose consciousness. Under 30, seizures become possible. Under 20, it can be fatal. Burnice makes a choice that likely saves her life. She pulls over. She spots a quiet residential street on the right, lined with trees and driveways. She flicks her turn signal on, fumbling the lever twice before getting it right. She steers her Honda Civic to the curb and shifts into park. She tries to reach for her purse again to grab the glucose tablets, but her arms feel heavy, her thoughts scattered. She knows she needs sugar. She knows she needs help, but the fog in her mind keeps thickening, making it hard to take action. She slumps against the driver's seat, breathing hard, sweating through her blouse, fighting to stay awake. That's when she notices the police car in her rearview mirror. Officer Kyle Williamson is 26 and 9 months out of the academy. Graduated in the middle of his class, completed his 4-month field training, and has been on solo patrol for 5 months. He's eager, maybe too eager. He wants to prove himself, earn arrests, and show his sergeant he's capable of real police work, not just writing tickets or responding to noise complaints. When Williamson spots a Honda Civic pulled over on a quiet residential street in the middle of the afternoon, his attention spikes. Erratic driving, pulling over without a clear reason. Classic signs of a drunk driver. He turns on his lights and pulls up behind the Civic. While sitting in his patrol car, he runs the license plate, waiting for the registration to come back. No warrants. The car is registered to Burnice Gleason, 6 miles from this spot. Williamson unbuckles his seat belt, taps his chest to start the body camera, and walks to the driver's side window. The body camera records everything from Williamson's point of view. Mounted on his left shoulder and angled slightly down, it shows his hands in the scene ahead. As he approaches the Civic, the camera captures the back of the car, the license plate, and the Ohio State bumper sticker. Reaching the driver's side door, the camera shifts down to the closed window. Williamson knocks on the glass with his knuckle. Inside, Burnice is slumped in the driver's seat, head leaning back, eyes half closed. Her face is pale and slick with sweat. Her breathing is fast and shallow. To Williamson, it looks like classic signs of heavy intoxication. Burnice hears the knocking and slowly turns her head toward the window. Her eyes struggle to focus on the uniformed figure outside. She reaches for the window button but misses twice before getting it. The window rolls down halfway, letting in the warm afternoon air. Williamson leans closer, face near the glass, and the body camera now captures the inside of the car. The keys are still in the ignition. A purse lies on the passenger side floor. A reusable water bottle sits in the cup holder. There's no alcohol in sight, no open containers, but Williamson thinks he smells something. Maybe it's just sweat, or maybe it's the fruity scent of ketones that diabetics sometimes produce when their blood sugar is off. But Williamson's mind interprets it as alcohol. Confirmation bias kicks in instantly. "Ma'am," Williamson says, his voice already sharp with suspicion. "You've been drinking today, your eyes are glassy, you're sweating. Smells like alcohol in here." Burnice tries to respond. She knows what she wants to say. She wants to tell him she's diabetic, that her sugar is crashing, that she needs help. But her tongue feels heavy and clumsy. Her words come out slurred, broken, each syllable a struggle. "No, need sugar, I am sick." Williamson has heard this before. Every drunk driver claims they're sick, claims they only had a couple of drinks, claims they're okay to drive. He crosses his arms, looking down at Burnice with a mix of doubt and irritation. "Yeah, that's what they all say. Look at me, how much have you had?" Burnice is fading. She feels herself slipping, the darkness creeping at the edges of her vision. She lifts her right arm, slow and uncoordinated, like moving through water. She raises her wrist toward the window and the body camera captures it clearly. A silver medical ID bracelet, engraved with the red medical symbol designed to alert first responders to urgent health issues. Burnice is trying to show it to him. She's trying to communicate the one thing that matters, her condition. The body camera captures the bracelet clearly. The afternoon sun glints off the polished silver. The red symbol is unmistakable. Williamson glances at it for a split second. He sees it, the camera proves it, but he doesn't process it. In his mind, he's already made up his story. He sees a drunk driver avoiding responsibility. The slurred words, sweating, glassy eyes, and smell all reinforce that belief. The bracelet doesn't fit his narrative, so his brain ignores it, treating it as irrelevant, just another excuse. "Ma'am, slurring your words isn't helping," Williamson says, his voice harder, more commanding. "I'm not buying it." Burnice's hand drops to her lap. She can't argue anymore. She can't make him understand. Her blood sugar has fallen below 40 and her brain is running on fumes. She's still conscious but barely holding on, clinging to awareness through sheer will and fear. She knows what's happening. She knows she's dying, and she knows this officer doesn't believe her. "Step out of the vehicle," Williamson orders. Burnice doesn't move. She can't. Her muscles won't cooperate. She's still gripping the steering wheel with her left hand, not out of defiance, but because she lacks the coordination to let go. Williamson interprets this as resistance. He opens the driver's side door and the body camera captures him reaching in to grab Burnice's arm. "Come on out of the car," he says, pulling her. Burnice's body is limp, heavy like dead weight. She slides sideways in the seat, unable to hold herself up. Williamson catches her before she falls completely, but his frustration is clear, annoyed that she's making things difficult. "Jesus, how much did you have?" he mutters. He pulls her out of the car. The body camera shows Burnice's legs collapsing as soon as her feet touch the pavement. She can't stand. She sinks against Williamson, who has to support her weight. To him, this looks like extreme drunkenness. He assumes she must be 2 or 3 times over the legal limit. He doesn't consider that something else could be happening. He's trained to spot DUI signs, to conduct field sobriety tests, but he's never properly trained to recognize diabetic shock. He doesn't know that hypoglycemia can mimic intoxication almost perfectly. Williamson spins Burnice around and pulls her arms behind her back. The handcuffs click into place, first the right wrist, then the left. The medical ID bracelet is now trapped under the metal cuff, still visible but ignored. Burnice makes a soft sound, somewhere between a whimper and a moan, but she's too far gone to speak. Williamson walks her to his patrol car, supporting most of her weight, and opens the back door. He guides her into the back seat and she immediately slumps against the window, eyes closing. "Stay awake," he orders, but she doesn't respond. She's unconscious. Her blood sugar has fallen below 35. Her brain is starving for glucose. Every second without treatment brings her closer to permanent brain damage or death, but Williamson doesn't know this. He sees what he believes is a drunk driver passing out in his back seat, assuming it's just part of the process. They always sober up eventually. He closes the door, goes back to Burnice's car to turn off the ignition and lock it, then gets into the driver's seat of his patrol car. He radios dispatch, "Show me en route to the station with one in custody suspected DUI." The drive takes 14 minutes. Burnice doesn't move the whole way. Williamson checks her twice in the rearview mirror, and both times she's still slumped against the window, exactly where he left her. He assumes she's just sleeping it off. The Columbus Police Department's downtown substation is a squat brick building with a small booking area and holding cells. Williamson parks in the back lot, opens the rear door, and tries to wake Burnice. "Hey, wake up, we're here." She doesn't respond. He shakes her shoulder harder. "Ma'am, I need you to wake up." Still nothing. Williamson feels the first hint of concern but pushes it aside. She's just really drunk, he tells himself. He unbuckles her seat belt and pulls her out of the car. Her body is completely limp. He has to half carry, half drag her into the station. The booking desk officer looks up as Williamson struggles through the door with Burnice. "DUI," Williamson explains. "She's pretty far gone. Do you want a blood draw?" the officer asks. "She's not going to blow. She can barely stay conscious." In Ohio, as in most states, if a DUI suspect refuses or can't complete a breathalyzer test, officers can request a blood draw to measure blood alcohol content. This requires calling a certified phlebotomist or medic trained to draw blood while preserving the chain of custody for evidence. Williamson gets Burnice into a chair in the booking area. She immediately slumps forward, and he has to prop her against the wall to keep her from sliding to the floor. He calls the on-call medic service that works with the police department. Rick Mendoza has been a paramedic for 12 years before taking side shifts doing blood draws for DUI arrests. It's easy money, usually 15 minutes per draw, $80 a pop. He arrives at the station 23 minutes after Williamson's call. Carrying a small black kit filled with needles, tubes, alcohol wipes, and gloves, he walks into the booking area. Rick has done hundreds of these draws and can usually spot a drunk person from across the room. But when he sees Burnice slumped in the chair, something immediately feels off. He kneels in front of her, hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. He touches her forehead, cold, clammy, and sweaty. Rick knows from years of experience that drunk people are usually warm and flushed from alcohol. Cold and clammy is something different. He checks her pulse, and that's when he notices the bracelet. "She's wearing a medical ID," Rick says sharply, looking at Williamson. "Did you check this?" Williamson shifts uncomfortably. "She mentioned something, but she was slurring badly." Rick turns the bracelet to read it. The engraving is clear: BERNESTGLEASON, type 1 diabetic, insulin dependent. An emergency contact number is also listed. Rick's expression changes instantly from routine boredom to urgent focus. He looks at Burnice's face again, pale, sweating, completely unresponsive. He pulls a pen light from his pocket and checks her pupils. They react, but slowly. "This isn't alcohol," Rick says. He's already digging into his bag for a glucose meter. "She's crashing. Get me the glucose gel now." Williamson stands frozen. "What? She's hypoglycemic. Her blood sugar's in the basement." "This is a medical emergency, not a DUI. Where's your glucose gel?" I don't have it. Jesus Christ." Rick moves quickly. He pricks Burnice's finger with a lancet, squeezes out a drop of blood, and touches it to the test strip. The meter beeps. The number that appears makes Rick's stomach drop. 28 mg/dl. Normal blood sugar is 70 to 100. Below 40 is dangerous. Below 30 is life-threatening. At 28, Burnice is only minutes from a seizure or coma. Rick doesn't have time to be gentle. He grabs Burnice's jaw and gently forces her mouth open. From his kit, he pulls a small tube of glucose gel, a concentrated sugar paste made for situations like this. He squeezes half the tube into her mouth between her cheek and gum, hoping some will absorb through the mucous membranes. "Call 911, he orders Williamson. "Tell them we need EMS for a diabetic emergency. Conscious but unresponsive, blood glucose 28. Williamson goes pale. He's starting to realize he didn't arrest a drunk driver, he arrested a sick woman. He fumbles for his radio. "Dispatch, I need EMS to the station, diabetic emergency." Rick keeps working. He elevates Burnice's legs to help blood flow to her brain. He checks her pulse, counting the rapid, shallow beats. He squeezes the rest of the glucose gel into her mouth and waits. Glucose gel can act quickly if the patient can absorb it, raising blood sugar in 10 to 15 minutes. But Burnice is so far gone that Rick isn't sure it will work fast enough. If her blood sugar drops further, she could seize. If she seizes, she could aspirate, stop breathing, or suffer brain damage. Rick has seen diabetics die from prolonged hypoglycemia. It's rare, but it happens. 3 minutes pass, then 4. Rick checks her blood sugar again. 32 mg/dl. It's rising slowly. He gives her more glucose gel, speaking to her the whole time even though she can't respond. "Come on, Burnice, stay with me. We're getting sugar in you. You're going to be okay." At 6 minutes, he checks again. 41 mg/dl. Better. At 8 minutes, Burnice's eyelids flutter. At 9 minutes, her eyes open. She's confused and disoriented, but she's conscious. Rick nearly cries with relief. The EMS crew arrives 11 minutes after Williamson's call, carrying a stretcher and a jump bag. Rick gives them a quick handoff. "Type 1 diabetic, severe hypoglycemic episode, initial blood sugar 28, now up to 42 after oral glucose gel." The paramedics start an IV and push dextrose, a fast-acting sugar solution that will bring Burnice levels back to normal. Within 5 minutes of the IV, she's alert enough to speak. "What happened?" she whispers. "You crashed," Rick says gently. "Your sugar bottomed out. You're going to be okay now." "I tried to tell him," Burnice says, tears filling her eyes. "I told him I was sick." Rick looks at Williamson, standing against the wall, face pale. "Yeah," Rick says quietly. "I know." Burnice is taken to Grant Medical Center, where she spends 6 hours in the emergency department being monitored and stabilized. She's released that night with instructions to follow up with her endocrinologist. She goes home, crawls into bed, and cries for an hour straight. She cries from relief at being alive. She cries from the trauma of being handcuffed while dying. She cries from the humiliation of being treated like a criminal when she needed help. And she cries from anger. She did everything right and it almost still killed her. The next morning, Sergeant Maria Kowalski, Williamson's direct supervisor, reviews the body camera footage. She watches the entire encounter twice. She sees Burnice slurring her words, holding up the medical bracelet, and Williamson glancing at it but dismissing it. She sees him drag a clearly incapacitated woman out of a car and handcuff her. She sees him drive her to the station while she loses consciousness in the back seat. Kowalski has been a cop for 19 years. She's made mistakes, every officer has, but this isn't one of them. This is negligence, a failure so basic it could have cost a life. Kowalski escalates the footage to the chief. The chief watches and immediately calls the city's legal department. They review it and begin calculating potential settlements because everyone who sees the video understands the same thing: the city is liable. An officer ignored a medical alert bracelet, arrested a woman in diabetic shock, and nearly let her die in custody. If Burnice had died, the city could face a wrongful death lawsuit in the tens of millions. As it stands, they're facing civil rights claims, negligence charges, and serious public backlash. Officer Kyle Williamson is placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. The inquiry takes 3 weeks, mainly reviewing the body camera footage and interviewing Rick Mendoza. The findings are clear. Williamson failed to recognize a medical emergency, ignored obvious medical identification, and endangered a citizen's life. The disciplinary board recommends termination. The chief agrees. Williamson is fired after just 9 months on the force. His peace officer certification is suspended, pending a hearing before the state's Peace Officer Training Commission. At that hearing, a board reviews the same footage and decides Williamson's actions were so far below the standard of care that he should no longer work in law enforcement. His certification is permanently revoked. Burnice Gleason hires civil rights attorney Thomas Chen, who specializes in police misconduct cases. Chen files a federal lawsuit against the city of Columbus and Officer Williamson, citing false arrest, violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act, deliberate indifference to serious medical needs, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The city's lawyers watch the body camera footage and know a trial would be unwinnable. No jury would side with the city after seeing that video. They offer a settlement. Chen demands $750,000. The city counters with $400,000. They settle at $575,000. Burnice uses part of the money to start a foundation that provides free medical alert training to law enforcement agencies, determined to prevent other diabetics from experiencing what she went through. The story first breaks on local news, then spreads regionally, and finally goes national. The body camera footage is released to the public and quickly goes viral. Within 48 hours, it has been viewed 20 million times. The comments are full of outrage. How can someone ignore a medical bracelet? How can you fail to tell the difference between someone drunk and someone dying? How does a person this unprepared become a police officer? The Columbus Police Department issues a statement expressing regret and announcing new mandatory training on recognizing medical emergencies. The training includes a 2-hour module on diabetes, focusing specifically on the symptoms of hypoglycemia and the importance of medical alert jewelry. Burnice's case is used as the main example of what not to do. 6 months later, Burnice Gleason sits in her living room watching a news segment about police reform. Her case is highlighted, showing the body camera footage and featuring an interview with her attorney. Physically, she has mostly recovered. Her blood sugar is stable, and she's back at work reading to kindergartners about dinosaurs. But the psychological scars run deeper. She has nightmares about being in the back of that patrol car, about feeling herself fade away while handcuffed and helpless. She experiences panic attacks when she sees police cars and has needed therapy to process the trauma. She wears her medical bracelet every day, but she wonders if it even matters. If an officer could see it and ignore it once, what's to stop it from happening again? The truth is that what happened to Burnice Gleason isn't an isolated incident. It reflects a bigger problem in law enforcement: inadequate medical training combined with confirmation bias. Police officers are trained to spot criminal activity, identify drunk drivers, detect drug use, and recognize threatening behavior, but they are not nearly as well trained to recognize medical emergencies that can appear like criminal behavior. Diabetic shock can look like being drunk. Stroke symptoms can look like drug use. Autism can look like resistance. And when an officer decides what they think they're seeing in the first 30 seconds, it's almost impossible to change their mind, even when the evidence shows otherwise. Officer Williamson saw a drunk driver because that's what he expected. Slurred speech, drunk; sweating, drunk; glassy eyes, drunk; unable to stand, drunk. Every symptom fit the story he had built in his mind. The medical bracelet didn't fit, so he ignored it. Burnice's pleas didn't fit, so he dismissed them as excuses. His brain filtered out anything that contradicted his conclusion, because admitting he was wrong would have meant admitting he didn't know what he was looking at. And young officers desperate to prove themselves rarely admit uncertainty. This is the lesson that must be drilled into every police academy, every field training program, every roll call briefing. A badge does not make you a doctor. Police officers are first responders, and that means they must recognize medical emergencies at least as well as criminal behavior. They need to know that slurred speech and confusion can indicate many things besides intoxication. They must look for medical alert jewelry and actually read it. They must understand that diabetes, seizures, strokes, and head injuries can all mimic drunken or drugged behavior. And they must call for medical help immediately when in doubt, because the cost of being wrong is measured in lives. Burnice Gleason survived because a paramedic knew what diabetic shock looked like. If Rick Mendoza hadn't been there, if a less experienced medic had shown up, Burnice could have stayed in that chair for another hour while her blood sugar continued to fall. She could have seized. She could have slipped into a coma. she could have died in police custody. And Officer Williamson would have called it a tragic accident. He might have said she was on drugs or had some underlying condition. He would never have admitted that ignoring a bracelet almost killed someone, but Rick was there and the body camera was recording. Now the world knows what happened. That's why there were consequences. That's why Williamson was fired instead of quietly transferred. That's why Burnice got justice instead of a death certificate. The camera captured every second, preserving clear evidence of negligence, making it impossible for the department to sweep it under the rug. Without it, it would have been Burnice's word against Williamson's, and we all know how that usually ends. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: medical alert jewelry exists for a reason. These bracelets and necklaces are not fashion statements. They are emergency communication devices for people whose bodies can turn against them without warning. If you see one, read it. If you're a police officer and see one, read it twice. The person wearing it is counting on you to understand that they are not drunk, not high, not resisting, they're sick, they're scared, and they need help, not handcuffs. Burnice Gleason pulled over to save her life. She recognized the danger, made the responsible choice to stop driving, and waited for help. She did everything right, and she was still arrested, handcuffed, and left to lose consciousness in the back of a police car. That's the real nightmare. Not that officers make mistakes, but that the systems in place allow those mistakes to almost kill people before anyone notices. Burnice survived because she got lucky. The next person might not be so fortunate. That's why these stories must be told. That's why we demand better training, better policies, and stronger accountability. A badge comes with immense power, and that power must be balanced with knowledge and humility. Officer Williamson had the power, he didn't have the knowledge. And Burnice Gleason nearly paid for that ignorance with her life.